Pokemon Ultimate Adventures by Mikazuki. Location: Grim Void. Everyone in the Grim Void had heard what the two were saying, and they were all stricken with grief. I can't believe it! He's... Ash's... Tracy couldn't finish. After so long, they've admitted to each other how they truly felt. But now, it's just not fair! It's just not fair! Brock screamed. I've seen many tragedies in my journeys, but nothing came close to this. Ebby's head hung low as he tried to comfort his sister. Everyone in the Grim Void had been cheering Ash on, but the cheering had turned to mourning. Quite a lot of them were crying. Jessie burst into tears, while James tried to comfort her, also struggling to hold back his own tears. The only one who didn't look sad was Gary. As a matter of fact, he was leaning back casually with his arms crossed. A smile touched his face. If there really was a tragedy involving Ash, then he'd have been crying, but he knew something that they didn't. All the time he'd known him, Gary Oak had learned never to underestimate Ash Ketchum. Location: Marble City. How can I go on? Misty asked herself. Her tears had not stopped. I'm alone, she said to herself. We were supposed to be together forever. Why? Why did this have to happen? She asked herself. Why? She screamed and burst into tears. Huh? She looked left and right, hearing a strange glittering sound. Wondering where the sound was coming from, she reached into her pocket and pulled out the card, La Force de l'Amour. This card, it strengthened us. It was what made us realize that we loved each other. She stared at it. What? It began to sparkle and flew out from her hands. It remained there, floating in the air. The same colorful sparkles that healed them the first time circled around them. At the same time, the card that Ash had picked up, the card simply known as Justice, also moved into the air. Suddenly, the shining sphere flashed bright, glowing fiercely, and the two cards shattered, breaking into countless bits of light. They fell slowly, like snow. As the shining sphere continued to glow, the same glow began to surround Ash's body. He began to shine like the sun as the light from the cards were absorbed into his body. He began to stir. Ash? Misty wiped the tears from her eyes. Ash sat up and rubbed his head. He turned to her, opened his eyes, and the first thing he saw was... Misty? Ash! Tears gathered once more in Misty's eyes. Misty! He cried out, and they embraced. But this time, they were crying tears of happiness. They were together again, and it would remain that way forever. They gazed into each other's eyes, their arms wrapped around each other, and they engaged themselves in a long and passionate kiss. As the kiss ended, there was a roar of applause. Surprised, both Ash and Misty looked up to see the entire city, all the people cheering, and at the front were their friends and Pokemon. The sky started to brighten as the sun was rising, ending the long, dark night. You did it! Brock, Tracy, and Ebby ran forward. You're heroes! Amiibi and Team Rocket came forth. They all lifted Ash and Misty into the air. 3 cheers for Ash and Misty! Gary shouted. Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray! The celebration lasted from the beginning of dawn until late into the night. Though lots of the city had been heavily damaged, no one could resist celebrating to all the music in this momentous occasion dedicated to Ash and Misty. As night came, the city was still full of music and festival lights, and Ebby was setting up a fireworks display. And speaking of Ebby... Ah! Ebby was searching around frantically. What's wrong? Amiibi asked as she walked by. I just fixed the Quicksilver! I put it right there, but now it's gone! said Ebby. Never mind that right now. Everyone's gathered around the center of town, said Tracy. They want Ash and Misty to step up and give a few words. Where are they anyway? Asked Brock. You won't find them here, a voice spoke. They turned around and saw Skyrender. He looked unusually happy, and he was holding up the heavily injured and unconscious twin dreamer and Goth on his shoulders. I saw them running off holding hands before Ash jumped onto that Quicksilver thing, and she jumped along with him, and they left, probably to find some peace and quiet, as well as a little privacy. And speaking of leaving, I'd better go too, Skyrender finished, and leapt to the top of a building and out of sight, carrying his fallen comrades. Well, there he goes, Brock said. Should we follow them? After all, we are angry at them. Everyone paused for a minute. Nah, they all said at the same time. You know, this whole experience has been really exciting. Gary stepped forward. He had finished setting up the fireworks, and now he just had to wait for the time to light them. I've only been fighting against regular guys, but never against any real supervillains. I've been getting kinda bored lately, and my life could use a little change. And also, since Ash and me are friends again, I'd like to know when he gets back, that if I could tag along, we got a lot of catching up to do. Speaking of groups, don't you think it's about time ours got back together, Ebby? Amoebi stepped forwards. We originally split up so the fiends wouldn't find us, but with Ash along, there's no need to hide. I'll travel with you while looking for our old friends. This team's short on females anyway. And hey, we might find Tabiko too. You'd really like that, right, Ebby? She nudged him. Sure, whatever. Ebby crossed his arms and looked away in an attempt to hide the redness on his face. Quickly, he changed the subject. Hey, you know there's a dance going on right now? Come on, we could use a little fun. Yeah! They all cheered. Location: Oasis. Not bad for our first date, Misty? Asked Ash. He and Misty were sitting on a large boulder, holding hands. No one had followed them. They left their Pokemon behind and came here alone. Absolutely perfect. Misty smiled. The place was beautiful. Up in the sky, the stars were twinkling, and the moon was full. When they looked down, they could see the reflections perfectly in the crystal-clear waters of the Sapphire Oasis, and all the plants growing around this area certainly added to the scenery. Everything was so peaceful, and was quite a change from all the fighting. They could see the city perfectly from here. Hey, listen to that! Misty exclaimed. The dance music ended, and it sounded like the last song was being played. It was a calm, slow dance. Ash smiled as he got up. Hey, Misty, he said, as he stepped down from the rock and reached up with his hand. May I have this dance? Misty giggled and held Ash's hand, letting him support her as she came down from the boulder. You're such a gentleman! Even from where they were, they could hear the music clearly. They danced together to the slow music and relished every moment of it. Their faces were only a few inches away from each other, and they both engaged themselves in a long and beautiful kiss that seemed to last forever. Finally, the song ended, and the festival concluded. Ash and Misty sighed as they let go, gazing into each other's eyes and smiling. All of a sudden, a loud popping sound echoed through the sky, making them both jump. They looked up to see that a fireworks display was starting. Hey, Misty, come on! Ash regained his playful side and ran to the boulder. Hey, wait up! Misty called as she ran to catch up with him. Ash had climbed it and reached down for her hand, pulling her up. They enjoyed the fireworks immensely. Each one was more impressive than the last. After several minutes, the display ended, and the city quieted down. Bit by bit, the lights around the city were turning off, and people were going to bed. In the end, the only light left was the one shining from the moon. Ash sighed, looking up at the stars. He remembered the battle that had taken place, and the one who had set it all up. You knew the outcome was gonna be like this, didn't you, Sky? He wondered. No, I'm not gonna thank you for this, but because of it, I now understand the true meaning of strength, and I will use this strength to protect the people I love. He looked to his side. Misty started to shiver. Are you cold, Misty? Asked Ash. The wind blew, and he started shivering himself. The desert was very cold at night, and they didn't have a fire, but there were other ways they could keep warm. Misty, come here. Misty nudged closer to Ash, and he pulled out a blanket from his bag. It was a bit small, so they had to cuddle together to make room. Both of them were warmed right up. They continued to watch the stars until they could no longer stay awake. They fell asleep in each other's arms, keeping each other warm in the coldness of the night. Where will things go from here? We don't know. What will the future have in store? Is this the end of the story, or just the beginning? Only time will tell. And so ends Volume 1 of this story. With the power he holds and his friends by his side, what new challenges await Ash Ketchum? It is a long, steep road ahead, and many treacherous obstacles litter the path. But Ash will not falter, and he will continue his journey to the top. The story isn't ending, it is only the beginning. I humbly thank all the readers who have supported me as I wrote this story, and Season 2 is coming soon. I would also like to give my special thanks to Pikachick13, Kaoi Kero 86, Charizard, along with my proofreader, the Ultimate Trainer, as well as my right-hand man, the Tensai, Satoshi Vash Kuwabara III, for without their support, I doubt I'd have gotten through this fic. Keep an eye out for Season 2. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, feel free to email me anytime. Mike Azuki.